What's up, everybody? Welcome to another
Hey,
episode of Cinema Royale. And today I'm starting the petition to change our theme music to the Mandalorian theme music. I think that's the
really?
way it should be. Do you not like the theme music for Mandalorian?
I was like, but no. I mean, I like the theme music. Fine. I was just, are we allowed to do that, or are we
Oh,
gonna get?
no, no, no. That's the
Okay,
petition
I was
is
gonna say, are we
for
gonna get a cease and desist from Disney if we did that?
yeah, the petition is for them to allow us to use it. First time I heard that song, and obviously we will talk about Mandalorian episode 3 here in a little bit, but the first
My
thing.
favorite episode of of the two seasons.
Oh, easily, and
One of
that's
my favorite.
without even seeing the next episode, which has all of the potential to be the next favorite. But I heard the theme song the first time. I was like, this is amazing. But I also ripped off Rocky almost completely. But it's so good, I just don't even care. I mean, it's like it's a mixture of the good, the bad, the ugly, and Rocky, which I think is just about perfect. But
Yeah.
what's been going on in your world for the last week? Now that we're past all the election stuff, we have a
Man,
vaccine for COVID within sight. Even if,
I'm so glad they waited until after the election to announce that,
yeah,
or at least that's what he says. He says that's what they did.
right.
Um,
Because that's what's important to everybody in the
yeah,
world is the U.S.
yeah, yeah,
election.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Not much. It's been another busy week. We got a lot of movies that came out this week.
Yeah.
A lot of them. Some of them we had already seen at Middleburg, like I Am Greta and Ammonite.
Hmm.
Ammonite being the big one. Those two, I'm afraid, one of the biggest movies of the week. Possible Oscar contender out of that one, especially for Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan. Um, but a lot of films, Fat Man, which is a very controversial film, Mel Gibson as Santa Claus, that came out this week. Hillbilly Elegy, another controversial one. The stuff that came out this week, man,
Yeah.
it never seems to slow down. Never seems to slow down.
No, and these days you have it used to be you'd have TV shows, whatever. The movies were the focus, but now you've got your queue filling up with stuff like the Queen's Gambit, and all the
I'm
holiday
never
stuff
gonna
that's
get
starting to
around
come
to
out.
watching that. I'm never gonna get around to it, and I want to watch it so bad.
I'm
I'm
really
only like
interested.
I haven't finished The Boys yet. I'm like on episode 2 of The
Oh,
Boys.
that's
Like I
that's
haven't gotten
that's
into it.
um that's blasphemous, actually, that you
Dang it!
haven't watched that
Darn.
yet.
I don't have
Yeah.
time. I spent all night last night. You know, last night I spent all night watching, catching up on wrestling.
Okay.
I watch a lot of wrestling. I was watching
Hmm.
the G1 Climax, which is like this, like the ultimate tournament in professional wrestling. It happens once a year, and I was watching it, and I was like, I'm like a month behind on that, and I was like, it's been over for a month, and
Yeah.
I spent all last night catching up. I finished it this morning. I was like, oh, thank God it's over now. Finally, I can move on to like the other like 4 weeks of wrestling from that promotion that I haven't been able to
Yeah, because
watch. And
you're
I'm like,
you're
why
not
can't I
just.
catch up with all this other TV? Because I was talking to our other writer, Cortland, and she was dropping all these names of shows that I should be watching. And I was like, I'm not going to see any of them, so I don't even know what you're telling me.
It's almost just depressing to have somebody tell you about new good shows because like you can't get to all of them. We started watching Hellstrom over the weekend, which is a Hulu show right up our
That
alley.
shit. I tried to watch the first episode. That shit is boring.
It was slow. I mean, it's definitely not the best show of its kind for sure. Constantine, which was short lived on with CBS. He got some more life in Legends of Tomorrow on the CW, but that show was really good and it got tanked. And Hellstrom is the last of the MCU TV studios that's
Marvel
going through
TV.
Marvel TV, yeah, like the Runaways and all that. So it's kind of strange. It was very Swamp Thing like that. It was even released. But
Yeah, it is very weird that they even bothered to put it out. I think the only reason they did it is because it was so far along that
yeah,
it would just cost them more to just end it. But
yeah. With
yeah,
something like Hulu, you just
Hellstrom
put it
looked
out.
bad from the start. I didn't like the casting from the start. Even the casting, when I looked at it, I was like, this is boring casting. Like I was
Mm,
like, I was bored by the people they had brought to be in it, and I was like, this does not spark any excitement. And sure enough, it didn't. Now, most of the Marvel TV shows, for the most part, have been decent. I mean,
yeah,
Agents of Shield obviously just finished its 7 year run. I think that final season may have been the best season that they ever did. Um, It was really good. If you haven't gone back and watched Agents of Shield's final season, you should. It's really
Mm.
strong. Shows like Runaways, which had I think 2 or 3 seasons, those ended up being really good. I ended up watching those. Um, short-lived stuff like Agent Carter wasn't bad either, but Marvel TV just never quite caught on the way it probably could have and should have.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I
And
mean, you could tell
now
they
it's
never gave
going
it the
to.
same.
And now it's going to because
Oh
they're all
yeah,
going to be on Disney Plus, and they're all going to be officially tied into the MCU. So
that's
they took all it's like Kevin Feige took all the lessons learned from Marvel TV and was
smart
like,
guy.
okay, now I'm going to go and do it better, and you can go away.
Yeah. Meanwhile, what's his name that was running? I want to say Jeff Loeb, but that's not the guy.
Well, Jeff Loeb is one of the guys, but running that joint, Jeff Loeb is atrocious. I hate him.
Yeah.
But
Well, okay. So it was Jeff Loeb. And there's static there anyway because Feige basically came in and said, "No, I'm just taking this from you now, taking it over." And you could really tell when Agents of Shield first came out, there was this real fervor in the air that oh,
because
what
because you think what they're doing right now isn't the same intention that they had all those years ago
well, it's
with
exactly
Agents.
it's the
It's
same
exactly what it's
feeling.
supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, which leads me. I mean, I'm a little less, suspicious that it won't be because it is all with Disney Plus, and Disney's got it all in one house and all that. But when Agents of Shield first came out, it was the same feeling in the air. It was we're gonna have TV and it's gonna crisscross with this, and the best we
Yeah,
got was Lady Sif showing up for one episode and a throwaway comment to Endgame, I think. You
yeah,
know, but yeah.
yeah, pretty much,
So
pretty much. And when none of that stuff ever came to be, because who knows what the reasons were? I guess beef between Feige and the people over at Marvel TV,
yeah,
but and then that stuff ever came to be, so it never actually panned out. But now
well,
that Feige's in charge of all of it, he's the chief creative guy,
yeah.
and he'll be able to do everything he wants with it now, and all that other stuff. Well, it's now in some alternate universe now. It doesn't really count.
Yeah. I
All,
mean, to
all that
me,
Netflix stuff, all the Netflix shows that people liked, off in some alternate universe somewhere. It doesn't really count.
yeah, that sucks. That part sucks. But, Agents of Shield made sense because it made sense that they didn't, loop it in as much because it felt the production quality wasn't there. It didn't feel cinematic. It felt like a TV show. But the Netflix shows all felt like you could kind of take that character and drop him in next to Cap or next to Bucky and or next to T'Challa and it would seem normal. But Agents of Shield just felt a little TV. It felt a lot smaller. WandaVision obviously they can't back down from it now because they've already said it's a major implication to Doctor Strange. Bucky and the Winter Soldier probably another. I just started catching up on I've got my Marvel Unlimited and my DC Universe apps, and I've been catching up on the old not really old, but I guess in the last 15 years, Winter Soldier and Falcon comics.
Yeah.
Man, I've been missing. I am so psyched to see that show. I forgot or didn't realize how good Marvel did, espionage books. The whole thing with Bucky and the Winter Soldier coming back, Agent 13 being in there, all that. It was just
Yeah.
it's awesome. Can't wait to see it.
Emily Van Camp. Yeah, yeah.
I'm a
All
fan.
right. All right. Anyway, so since you mentioned WandaVision, we did get news on that. It's actually going to be coming out in January of 2021. We thought it was going to be coming out in December, but they
Yeah,
moved it to January, which means that 2020 is the first year in a decade with no Marvel,
zero,
no Marvel. So
none.
you got something else to hate 2020 for.
Yep. As if we needed something else. 2020's been a freaky year, and that's how I do segues. We got plenty of movies to talk about, and Freaky is the first movie we should talk about, mostly because it's a good. It sets a good theme for the rest of the types of movies that came out. This is not. There was no regular movies that came out this week. There were no standard films. You got movies about an assassin going after Santa Claus. You have Freaky Friday with a serial killer. All kinds of crazy stuff going on. Freaky, for anybody that doesn't know, I just basically described it. We've seen the body swap comedy 100,000 times. We've seen it in the Change Up with Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman and Freaky
Huh.
Friday. What was the one with Judge Reinhold? Um,
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm going back. I'm
Judge
going back.
Reinhold and Fred Savage.
Yep. Judge Ronald Fred Savage. But Freaky asked a question: what happens if a 17-year-old switches bodies with a 6'4" serial killer? Vince Vaughn is that serial killer in Freaky. I know how people must think I'm thinking of this. I really want to get your take on it. Vince Vaughn, Catherine Newton switching bodies, the hot chick, but with a killer and much more well
Vice
done.
versa. That movie
Yeah,
was vice versa.
vice versa. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The hot.
1988.
I did go way back. Wow.
Yeah, I
Wow.
was 11 years old.
Um, Freaky is like the horror version or the darker version of the darker, much better, much well performed version of The Hot Chick, which is another body swap comedy with Rob Schneider and
Oh God.
Rachel McAdams. I know my body swaps. Rachel McAdams. And this is kind of the same thing.
At one point, I may have owned The Hot Chick.
Yeah, well,
I think I may have owned that movie at one point. But that's not a good movie.
no, but it is Rachel McAdams at her pinnacle. I will say that.
That is indeed true.
Yeah.
I like Freaky. I like Freaky a lot. And look, it's in the same vein as the Happy Death Day movies,
Right.
which is it's written and directed by the same guy, Christopher Landon, who did both of those, and he did this one as well. And I don't know, there's something about him, man. He has this perfect ability to be able to blend horror and comedy, and do it in a way that it can be funny, but also have stakes.
Yeah.
Which is not something that is very easy to do when you're trying to blend horror and comedy. You usually fall too hard on one end or the other. And he's just found this perfect balance in all of these films. And it was funny. I found Vince Vaughn a lot scarier in this than I did in Brawl and Cell Block 99. And I mean, like, he was scarier as the girl. Like when he was when he was trying to play like the sexy teen, it was just so uncomfortable watching him do it.
Yeah.
But that was what made it work so well. I mean, it should make you uncomfortable, when he's being flirty and batting his eyes and stuff like that. But it's funny because Landon manages to do smart things with it without like beating you over the head. So it's so in the case of Vince Vaughn's character, he's a serial killer. But when the girl gets transformed, gets put into the man's body, she suddenly feels like she's being seen for the first time. It's one of those things because she's now in a man's body, and people take notice of men the way they don't take notice of women. And it's sort of vice versa happens for him. Like he gets put into the girl's body, and strangely he feels empowered. If both of them feel empowered for different reasons. He feels empowered because he takes this attractive but presenting herself as plain girl and makes her sexy, and suddenly she's getting noticed. And these are very I think pointed commentaries without them having to be really overt about it. But it's also, and people will be surprised by this, I think. It's super gory when it wants to be.
Yeah. Well, it is
really, really violent.
It is Blumhouse at the end of the day.
Get that by watching trailers and stuff. It pushes that R rating, man. It really does. In a couple of those scenes. Poor Alan Ruck.
I love Alan Ruck too, man. He's one of my favorites of all time, but he just always gets the short end of the stick.
He's a perfect douche. He's such a perfect douche.
He is.
You kind of want. He doesn't even seem like he's that awful of a person, but he's just bad enough.
Yeah.
And bullies really get their comeuppance in this movie, and like they do in a lot of horror movies, they tend to get their comeuppance. But poor Alan Ruck, man, he gets it worse than anybody in this film.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, he's played an asshole in so many movies. I mean, he is Cameron Fry at the end of the day, so he hasn't always been an asshole.
It's funny how we look at Cameron as such an asshole now. He took that role, which Cameron wasn't an asshole. Cameron was a regular dude getting dragged along, and Ferris was the asshole.
Anybody that's ever been an if you've ever been an introvert,
we've extrapolated it and made it into this asshole role, and Alan Ruck's career has been defined by it. Like every role he gets, is
Well,
some heightened version of Cameron, and he's just a dick. And
yeah.
that was never that wasn't the
Well,
case.
no. What I was saying is he hasn't always been an asshole. He was Cameron Fry after all. And the thing is, anybody that's ever felt a little bit introverted and has had an extrovert of a friend feels for Cameron Fry. We understand Cameron Fry. Like I kind of go back and forth between the intro extrovert thing, and I can totally feel having to go out and not wanting to and claiming to be sick. Everybody can feel for Cameron Fry for sure.
Yeah.
But this is like I mentioned, this is a Blumhouse movie after all. So this is not we mentioned the hot chick and Freaky Friday, and it's not just playing with that serial killer angle. It goes full bore on it. There is a serial killer. This is a Blumhouse movie. It is full of gore. Maybe not full, but I do also like one of the things I always judge these movies on, and we should really have a top 10 written at some point on the site, which by the way, guys, is punchdrunkcritics.com if you haven't heard us say before, of the top 10 body swap gimmicks. Personally, up until Freaky, I always like to change up, which is two guys pissing in a magical fountain. It's I think a fortune cookie in Freaky Friday. It's always something different, and it's a mystical dagger in this one, which I thought was very child's play. Brings kind of the voodoo and hoodoo into it all.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't spend too much time telling us about the dagger.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing that
I don't
Blumhouse
care.
does well, and Christopher Landon. I mean, in Happy Death Day as well. It doesn't spend time explaining stuff that maybe you could think at cursory notice would need an explanation, but will drag the whole movie down explaining it. So
Yeah.
it knows what it's doing.
Hard to believe he's a guy who did I think he did maybe 4 or 5 paranormal activity movies. I mean, they're just so different, you know.
Did
But the guy knows his way around horror. I think quietly he is making as much of an impact on horror as somebody like James Wan or Lee Wanell.
yeah.
Very, very quietly doing that right now. Landon is really good. And he may have a new franchise on his hands with Freaky. Like he could go back and do this again. That dagger still exists. So I
Yeah.
guess he could go back and easily do it again. You have that dagger and get passed around from movie to movie.
And Blumhouse
Um,
knows how to keep a franchise going. Even something like Happy Death Day had a sequel.
but first, Happy Death Day 3, please.
Yeah. I mean, he's a really. I'm looking at his job sheet here, his CV, if you will, and he's a pretty prolific writer, not just director in the horror genre. He's got Disturbia, which I always thought was kind of undersung.
Underrated. That was underrated Shia LaBeouf.
Right, Blood and Chocolate, which was another werewolf vampire movie.
That movie sucked.
Okay, yeah, we'll skip over that one. Like you mentioned, he's got 4 paranormal activities, 2, 3, 4 in the marked ones. Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, which that really could be the start of his understanding of this horror comedy mix, because it was a really smart movie, and I like that a lot. And then Viral, Happy Death Day to You, and Freaky. So the guy's pretty. He's probably somebody to watch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So thumbs up on Freaky. It's in theaters now. I believe.
It is. It's actually it's actually it won the box office this weekend with like $1.3 million.
Yeah. Didn't do much. So it's in theaters now. It'll be out digitally very soon. I think in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely worth checking out. I would say stay home and watch it in safety, but definitely check it out when you can.
Yep. So real quick as we're bumping through, we've got some full reviews we want to do, but I can't say the damn movie. Do you want to say a couple quick words about a man at night? Amoditi, that one. The one with Sage Strickland and Kate Winslet.
It's not even that hard of a word.
I just can't say it. I try to pronounce both M's. That's my problem. I'm trying to say
Did you not have a chance to see this yet?
I did not. No, I didn't. I didn't get to Middleburg. Okay. I didn't get to
I assumed that you had seen it. So.
And based on certain things I've heard, I really want to see it.
Yeah, I know why you want to see it. You want to see it because Winslet and Saoirse Ronan make out.
Blue is the warmest color, is what I'm hearing.
We did talk about this a little bit last week. It is a very, very steamy sex scene between Saoirse Ronan and Kate Winslet, which is reason enough to go see it.
Right.
I had joked that I had seen it at Middleburg in the outdoors theater, and I think I talked about that too.
I think that's where it came up on the show, actually. Yeah.
yeah. I've seen it at the Outdoor Theater in Middleburg Film Festival, and the sounds of the sex scene are echoing throughout the entire the entire resort.
You got
It was just like,
somebody's next door just having a nice quiet romantic dinner and it gets real awkward.
yeah. I mean, the movie's directed by Francis Lee, and it's about an archaeologist played by Kate Winslet, real life woman whose name is um, eluded me.
Mary Anning?
Mary Anning, thank you. And Saoirse Ronan's character is a real life woman too, another archaeologist.
Mm.
Um, and it imagines a lesbian relationship between the two, of course, at a time when that sort of thing is disregarded and frowned upon.
Hmm.
And it's not a bad film. It's a decent film. I think it's a little too distant.
Hmm.
I think people are gonna have a hard time connecting with it, which is why you're not hearing a ton about it, despite the people involved and despite the fact that it may possibly have some awards aspirations. You're not hearing a lot about it. And the funny thing is, because at lunch we were just talking about this, you're not hearing much about the sex scene either, which is like which tells me that people aren't seeing it. They just aren't seeing the movie. That's what it tells me, and that could be the case. Um, it's possible that people feel some hangover because they imagine it as this year's Portrait of a Lady on Fire,
Hmm.
and that movie just came out last year. So people are they're using shorthand and just kind of comparing them both and assuming they're both the same. They're not the same. Um, uh, Portrait of a Lady on Fire is probably a more passionate film than this is, but I feel like people aren't going to connect with this one in in the same way that they did with that, and it might get overlooked. It's a fine film. I don't know if it was necessarily for me, other than the sex scene, which is of course for me. So
We're
I'm curious
honest
to see where it's going
here.
to go.
We're
Yeah,
honest here on
I'm
Cinema
curious to see
Royale.
what's going to happen with it. But if I had to rate it, I mean, I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5 or something like that. But I just don't. I don't think it's going to hit with people the way they would hope it would.
Right. No best picture aspirations then, but probably not.
I don't think so. But considering the year we're in, and like it's not it's obviously a prestige film, so it has that potential. It has
And
the
its
potential.
competition is like Sonic the Hedgehog. Well, no, they're allowing streaming obviously at this point. So, because they dropped all the regulations for needing to run in New York and L.A. for the Oscars this year, right? Did
They
it?
tweaked them to some degree. I can't remember exactly what it is now, but yeah, you still have to do a qualifying run,
Mm-hmm.
but I think you can do a qualifying run virtually. So I
Right.
think that's kind of how it is. But you still need to do a qualifying run.
Um, so yeah, speaking of awards and stuff, if somebody brings up Glenn Close and Amy Adams in heavy makeup, um, talking about down on your luck, backwoods folks. Backwoods might be a little derogatory.
Tell me you saw
Appalachian
this.
folks, huh?
Tell me you watched this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, if
Hillbilly Elegy.
just giving you that, yeah. So getting there, Glenn Close, Amy Adams, heavy makeup. You know, what's the word I'm
Bad
looking for?
wigs,
Bad
questionable
wigs.
accents.
You automatically would think awards. I mean, you described it to me. I think Charlize and Monster. I think stuff like that. But I mean, I might be alone on this. I'm not always the classiest guy, but I just it I couldn't I could it I couldn't get on with it. It did not help me at all. It was just really boring. It's I don't know. It didn't hook me at all.
Yeah, I mean, Hillbilly Elegy. I've hated that book
It's a great name
uh,
though.
by J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance,
Mm,
who became famous in 2016 during the President Trump election, 2016 election, because Hillbilly Elegy um, was sort of like his explanation, or I think an excuse, his way of excusing rural people and their reasons for voting for Trump. Like,
mm,
that's basically what it was. So he was brought on to be a talking head to explain the Trump voter. He was everywhere in 2016. So I hated him from that because they don't do that for black voters or anybody else. They always do
mm.
it for white rural, mid Midwestern folk. that they meet at a coffee shop or in a diner. Like that's
Right.
that it's always those voters. In fact, they spent 4 years still talking to those Trump voters,
Yeah.
um,
Which
and not
I mean,
talking to anybody else.
the
But
thing
that
that's
book was an explanation for them for that,
yeah.
and this movie. So I went into this movie already like ready to hate it.
Right.
But the thing is, when they hired Ron Howard to direct it, I remember
Uh-huh.
telling somebody, I was like, oh, so they're going to take all the politics out of it. And they sure as hell did. This
Which
movie
is
is as inoffensive and just easily digestible pablum as it could be. That's like what it is.
yeah.
And I guess, and if you're looking for a middle class boy makes good movie, then it's fine. It's
What do you
fine.
expect from Opie?
It's fine on that level.
Yeah.
You have Gabriel Basso who plays Vance, JD Vance. You know, and
Mm.
he's a Midwestern boy. I can't remember if they're from Ohio, maybe from Ohio, something like that. I can't remember. Um,
Yeah.
and he you know he gets away from his drug addicted mom. So you got the opioid crisis, which is in there, I guess.
Mm.
Not that we really see much of the whole opioid crisis. It's a major part of the book and not like a major part of the movie.
Right.
Um, he goes to Yale to better himself, and he gets dragged back home. His mom's having a relapse. His grandma's, you know, dying, played by Glenn Close, all this kind of stuff. So he gets
It's
dragged
very
back.
formulaic in that way.
He gets dragged back home, and kind of gets a look at everything that he had fought and clawed to get away from.
Mm.
And that's basically the story. And you know, a lot of people have made comments about Amy Adams and Glenn Close's performances, which are scene chewing and over the top. And yes, that they're both that way. Um, I didn't mind it so much. I didn't mind that stuff so much. The shaky accents and there's a lot of yelling and screaming in this movie that goes on, and you
Mm.
know, and they're very much distilled for long stretches of the movie into stereotypes, into country bumpkin stereotypes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't mind it so much because Ron Howard is so bland that I wanted something with some flavor to it. Like I didn't mind. Ron
Yeah.
Howard is so like it's just everything else about the book that was like edgy and kind of tough to deal with, that was confrontational, was so sanded down and everything for this movie in order to make it accessible to everyone, that I was dying for something to be kind of just out there. And Amy Adams and Glenn Close were that, and I was fine with that. I was
Yeah.
okay with it.
It makes it somewhat interesting. Yeah. I mean, first of all, what else do you expect from Richie Cunningham? But the thing is,
You would think the guy from Mayberry would know how to deal with these kinds of people, these characters, better
well,
than he
yeah.
does. But he seems to have no feel for these people at all.
Here's the thing: is if you were to take this and you take what you were saying before about how this book was used to explain the Trump voter, and then you look at because the thing is there hasn't been, at least not one that I'm aware of off the top of my head, a really good movie about, or at least a very well done movie about the opioid crisis and its effect on rural communities, especially in the Appalachians where this is taking place. I mean, these legal prescription drugs have torn through and eviscerated entire communities and towns of
I guess
people that.
Winter's Bone, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, because and people forget that the reason this whole thing starts in these communities is these people go to very physical manual labor jobs in mines and things like that. They have to take painkillers. They get addicted to the painkillers, and then the opioid crisis just runs through. At least that's how it starts in these places, and then people like this would benefit the most from healthcare across the board, from government assistance, from things like this where they're down on their luck and they need it the most, and they're fighting and rallying against it kind
Yeah,
of.
they vote
And
against their
that's
own best interests.
that's the movie
That's
I
like
want to see.
there's a total explanation for the book was trying to explain why these people vote against their best interests.
Right, but I mean, that's and you don't even have to make it about politics. Make it a personal interest story. Make it very personal. Politics will always kind of run an outside run on it, but it's just this just
That, that,
seemed
that's what he was. I
ineffective.
think that's what Howard was trying to do here. He was trying to make this such a personal story,
Yeah, but you can do
rather than
that.
a political one.
You don't have to. And when I say don't make it political, I mean you don't have to make your primary motive getting your political thoughts out there, but you can obviously show what they were trying to show in the first place, why they would do. That's an interesting story to me. That's something that I'm gonna watch for 90 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes. How long was this? This is, yeah, it felt like it. I wasn't sure. Almost 2 hours long, an hour 56. And I was just to lose me in an Amy Adams movie is very hard. We all know Travis's love for redheads. It's been documented over the last 10 years.
Yes.
Me, I got two: Isla Fisher and Amy Adams, and they look exactly the same. So I guess I have a type. But to lose me with her, even done up the way she was in this movie, is saying something. And I was insanely bored the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's an awful movie. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think it's okay, but I said it was only okay if you're in it for that most basic level, which is I want to see a hometown boy makes good movie, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. If you look at it simply on that level, it's effective enough. And I think that there's really good scenes between Glenn Close. All the scenes with Glenn Close where she's with the younger version of Vance are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because they really, that's when the movie starts to flesh out those characters beyond being just stereotypes, and you start to see that there's more to the grandma, the mama character,
Mm-hmm.
than we had seen previously in the movie. And I think that's one of the best things that the movie actually does accomplish. It's showing that there's more to these people than I think what we perceive them to be, and that goes for Amy Adams too, but Amy Adams' character too. But it takes a long time to get there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the other stuff in the movie I just simply did not care about. I didn't care about him getting back to Yale or whatever. All this stuff is going on against the backdrop of him trying to get a job interview at
Mm-hmm.
Yale, and I'm like, yeah, I don't care.
Well, that's the thing. At the end of the day, you have no interest in the success or failure of your main character. At least I didn't. And that's where you lose people.
Yeah,
If they don't have any interest in it, then I'll tell you what was interesting. The idea of
Freddie
Santa
Pinto.
Claus. Oh yes, always. I haven't seen her in forever. I don't think. When's the last major thing she's done?
I don't know. She's still working a lot, so we do a lot of reviews that have her in them. But I
Yeah,
just don't. I can't think of what like a mass big time film. I can't remember.
she is otherworldly beautiful, even in this movie. I think. But yeah, so other things that I did find interesting are the idea that an assassin has been hired to take out Santa Claus. Fat
What
Man
did you
is
think? What did you think of Fat Man? This is a movie that, like you said, was a little bit controversial. You're casting Mel Gibson, and his story speaks for itself. You cast him as Santa Claus,
mhm,
a grumpy, down on his luck Santa Claus, a very cynical Santa Claus, and a
right.
kid who hires a hitman played by Walton Goggins to kill Santa because he got a lump of coal in his
I'm
bedroom.
sorry. Something happened with my background.
Yeah, what is going on over
I don't
there?
know. I'm trying to fix it, but it's just all over the place. It was fine, and then all of a sudden these little black dots started showing up.
I thought they were birds or something.
No. Oh well, it is
I
what it
thought they
is.
were birds, and that was normal, so I didn't say anything about it.
Has it been doing that the whole time? I
Yeah,
don't know. I didn't even notice. Okay, well I'm trying to fix it and making it worse. Anyway, sorry. Um, so I mean, hey, look, man. The thing is, when it comes to Mel Gibson, and we are very clear on this show that you know we're not gonna make it all about politics, but we let our feelings be known and all that. But I there's no excuse for what he's done, but I'm pretty good at separating person from personality, if that makes sense.
right.
I'm able to enjoy, media. There's a line. Obviously, if what you did um, was repeated and it dominates everything about you. Now, I've got 40 years worth of Mel Gibson movies to draw on, and this isn't to excuse or underplay anything he's said or done, but the guy is really good in these types of roles. I mean, he just is. He's been good as the crazy grizzled person for 40 years, um, and the simple idea of a rich kid that gets pissy and has an assassin on speed dial that he uses to psychologically torture people he loses to in the science fair, and then sends that same assassin after Santa Claus, um, is awesome to me. That being said, it's not what I thought it was. I was really expecting.
This
You
is
remember?
this is what I've been waiting on.
I was expecting, the opening scene of the movie Scrooged with Bill Murray, where you have Lee Majors defending Santa's workspace from terrorists. I was kind of expecting that. I didn't expect sex scenes with Mrs. Claus. I didn't expect the
The Black
action.
Mrs. Claus, played by Marianne Jean Baptiste, which is very odd.
Yeah, especially considering what we were just talking about with Mel Gibson and his things he's expressed. But I didn't expect everything to be held to the third act either, and that's kind of where it bored me a little bit.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, see, here's the thing with Fat Man. I can look past the fact that Mel Gibson is who he is. I've done it with plenty of other movies that he's done since. Um, the only difference is I think you only cast Mel Gibson in this role as Santa Claus because of the controversy to spark.
Mm.
I think that's the only reason why they did it. Um, the problem is this movie isn't as funny or as wacky as it probably should have been, and I think I wanted it to be that movie, and it's actually kind of boring.
It
It's
takes
kind
itself
of
too
dull.
seriously. Yeah.
Kind of dull. It does take itself way too seriously. You have Walton Goggins as this kind of quirky hitman,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I could see him straining to make more out of this role than there actually was there. Like I could see like an indie film
Mm-hmm.
about this hitman hired to kill Santa Claus and his misadventures going to find him. That could be really funny,
Yeah.
like a dark comedy about him as he goes to do that. That could be really funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there were elements of, I think like Walton Goggins when he signed on, is like, yeah, that sounds pretty fucking great.
Yeah.
And then when he got the script and was looking at it, I was like, fuck, I've already signed on to this shit.
Well,
Um,
those two
because
words you said.
there's nothing here, but there's attempts at doing stuff here. Like
Mm-hmm.
Santa is cynical, and Santa has to deal. Santa is affected by the recession like everybody else. Like his business is his shop is a business.
Santa
It's a business, and
Claus.
he's got employees to take care of, and
Santa Claus
kids
getting
aren't
the
good
option
anymore. And
to.
so Santa's business is hurting because kids aren't really good anymore.
Yeah.
So, and he gets all his money based on how many good kids there are and that he delivers presents to. He gets subsidized by the government based off that. He's got all these real world economic concerns. And it's like they could do something interesting with that, but they don't really do it.
I will say one interesting thing that I absolutely loved was the idea of Santa Claus getting subsidized by the U.S. military for his elves making fighter jet control panels. That is
Right.
genius.
That
But
was
yeah,
funny. Like, that's a funny idea that I don't think they do as much with either. Like it's a whole lot of unrealized stuff in this movie.
yeah. I
Um,
don't think it had to
you
be
know,
so dark. I mean, I wanted to see stuff like Santa Claus throwing grenades at this hitman that looked like Jingle Bells or something like that. It doesn't have to be slapstick stupid, but this was dark and you
the
said.
premise is slapstick stupid, so I'd like it to be slapstick stupid.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't have to be Three Stooges like, but I mean,
Right.
you said something in there that should never go together. You should never be able to say Walton Goggins and boring in the same paragraph because
Right.
that dude is always elevating what he's in, and he does that in here as well. But it's not what I thought. It feels like a missed opportunity left and
Yeah,
right.
it is definitely a missed opportunity. There's good stuff in here. Like I actually think Mel Gibson isn't bad as Santa. I think he's actually all right. I think he shares some really sweet scenes with Marianne Jean Baptiste as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's actually really good as Mrs. Claus, or Ruth as she's named in the movie. I think she's
Yeah.
actually really good as sort of his support system in this movie. Um, that stuff's really strong. And I think the bad kid whose name I don't remember, he's fucking funny as hell. Like I
Yeah.
loved him. Like his
Yeah.
this was his character was kind of like how I wanted the other characters in the movie to be, because he
Right.
was so
Over the top.
comically evil and
Yeah.
so awful. That's the way I wanted this movie to be. If you're going to be heightened, and that's kind of the way I wanted the whole movie to be, not just him.
Yeah.
Um, and little stupid things that they did were really effective. Like the elves, like the elves are all in there. They live off baked goods and sugar. And yeah, I thought the best conversation in the entire movie was when he was talking to the military guy, and he's like trying to tell them about having a better diet.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guys sitting there, Elvis sitting there like, "No, we're good, man. We're this is what we eat, man. We good."
Yeah.
And the military guy just doesn't seem to understand it. It's like these are fucking elves, dude. It's like just
Yeah.
chill out, let them eat. But
I,
that's
that's the
like the best
thing.
conversation in the entire movie, because it was just so absurd. And I wish there could have been more stuff like that.
Who wrote it? Because I'll tell you right now, what's number one? Marianne Jean Baptiste is a treasure. I'm glad you brought her up because all I mentioned was a sex scene with Mrs. Claus. But at the end of the day, I mean, Broadchurch was my introduction to her really.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the woman's got like 10,000 credits and she's been amazing across the board. But um, I don't know. I'm looking. I'm pulling up the writers right now because I feel like there had to have been at least.
Well, it's the same writers and
They're not
directors.
okay.
They did a movie called Small Town Crime a few years ago. It's actually pretty good.
Okay, so my thing is this. It seems like this was brought in. This is the type of movie I could see being brought in for rewrites because there are sections and there are aspects that are exactly what you're talking about. Like you mentioned, um, Billy. What was What was the rich kid's last name? I know it was Billy. Billy something or other. So the rich kid, we'll call him that. He hits that almost James Bond villain level of ridiculousness. You
Yeah.
have conversations like the elf thing, but then you also have the rest of the movie that takes itself too seriously. That being said, the
Most
third
of the
act
movie is
hit.
Walton Goggins' character traveling up north, and
Yeah,
it's just really blah.
yeah. That the third act though, it did give some back. There's some really good action in that
There's good
last
action in
piece.
that final scene.
Yeah,
Absolutely, that is true.
yeah.
The
So,
the director, the writer director, one of the writers directors of the movie, because this is a thing now that happens all the time.
mhm.
Tweeted me after my review after my review went up and was like, thank you for checking it out." And I replied and I was like, "Thank you for giving me a chance to see Santa in a firefight. Thank you." Um, and then
uh,
obviously my review wasn't really that positive. It was like a 2.5 out of 5.
yeah,
But this is the thing now that happens in the world because you can't just put up your review anymore. You have to be insta checked by
right.
by the people who made
It's
the
your it's
movie.
your it's your credibility check. If you don't get that, oh, what's the point of even writing? Speaking of good action, we watched The Mandalorian this week, and god damn, was I fist pumping. I don't know about you, my pants got tighter while I was watching
Did you read my
that
review
episode.
of it? Did you read my review of it? All I said was I how many times I whooped in this movie, like during this episode.
I mean,
Insane.
Tag Team, the hip hop group from the early '90s, was all about this one because whoop, there it is. I'm sorry, I couldn't even do it. We finally get to see. I mean, this was they had some of the sweetest scenes we've seen in The Mandalorian, some of the most paternal scenes we've seen in The Mandalorian, some of the best action scenes, and the most revelations. I mean, there was so much logged into this first episode. You get something that you'd think would be, for once we have a continuation. Frog Lady is in this episode, and she's throughout. And we just talked last week about how everything's one and done. So you finally get a continuation in that. There's some really sweet scenes. I never thought I'd feel so touched by seeing two frogs see each other. You get revelations. One of the big questions on everybody's mind, not I guess one big question, but the big thing, you have Pedro Pascal, who's a big star, and he never takes off his helmet. Yet we have the Clone Wars, and we have everything else we've ever seen where Mandalorians take off their helmets all the time. And we get a really cool revelation about that from Bing Bing Bing, Bo-Katan, played by Katie Sackhoff.
Katie Sackhoff.
She's hit or miss for me, but I'd be lying if I didn't say she looked damn good as Bo-Katan.
She has red hair, so I really dug her as Bo-Katan. But
Yeah.
I've always had thing for her since she was Starbuck.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean this. I mean we said it last week, and I've said it in all my recaps. This season is going to live or die by the big reveals. So they got
Mm.
the Cobb Vanth reveal right with Timothy Olyphant,
Mm.
and now they've got the Bo-Katan and Sasha Banks reveals right with this one because
Next
I was
week.
excited to see Sasha Banks and figure out who she actually was.
Mm.
WWE superstar Sasha Banks, her first acting roles in The Mandalorian. It's like,
And she was featured in the first trailer. I mean, everybody thought she was a Jedi at first because she's the one you see with
because she's
the
wearing a hood,
the
so of
hood.
course you
Mm.
would think that. And they did that on
Right.
purpose.
Oh yeah, of course,
On
yeah.
purpose.
Yeah.
But she turns out to be one of these Mandalorians.
Mm.
And yeah, look, if you were a fan of the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, you got so many callbacks in this episode, man. I
Yeah.
mean, those shows went so far into if you ever were curious about Boba Fett or the Mandalorians, you like have to watch those shows.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
have to because
It's
that's
got
where
the
all the
entire
lore is.
mythology.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's all there, and this is bringing it into live action for the first time. And yeah, so you get this reveal, this sort of reveal. And honestly, I think people who have been following the Mandalorian story for a while probably figured it out already. I mean, there are
Hmm.
multiple clans within the Mandalorians, and they have different visions. I mean, they've broken out
And
these wars, and
Din
each
Djarin
one
is basically an
is
Al
going to be
Qaeda.
different. The Boba Fett, Jango Fett clan, all that stuff that seems so different than all the Mandalorians that we've been watching for years, the animated shows lately.
Hmm.
They got different philosophies.
Yeah,
But I mean, Bo-Katan is one of my favorite characters from those shows, and I
yeah.
thought Katie Sackhoff nailed her, just perfect Bo-Katan. And I thought, and this is one of those things that people have written articles about it now, so it's not a unique take.
Hmm.
But it's good to see a character because Bo-Katan has to be in her 40s or 50s
Hmm.
at this point in the Star Wars mythos. It's good to see a character who is a bit older, who is allowed to look younger.
Yeah,
Because in Star Wars, you're either young or old.
yeah.
There's
Han Solo is the closest you get to middle age.
yeah. I mean, there's almost no middle ground. I mean,
Hmm.
we're talking about the Han Solo the original movies. You know, they were making fun of Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan was probably in his 50s.
But,
but
but
they made him look like he was 80.
well, 50 also looked different in the 70s. Let's be honest. I mean, that's one of the things that blows my mind all the time. You see people that are like 45.
Right,
I
but they
mean,
were calling him a fossil when he wasn't a fossil.
yeah,
But that's kind of
fair
the way
enough. Yeah.
the mentality of Star Wars has been, old or young. There's like no
Hmm.
middle ground. And I was glad that you were able to find someone who is in the middle ground, like Bo Katan, who
Yeah.
is, and gosh, she's just so perfect. And Sasha Banks being a member of that crew, of that trio of Mandalorians, I thought was just
Did
fantastic.
she voice Bo-Katan in the
I don't
cartoons?
think so. I don't think so.
Because we're sitting there watching it, and my wife and I are watching together, and she says, "Oh, well, she was the voice in it too." And you know what? She
Uh,
was. I've just pulled it up now. Damn sure enough, in Clone Wars at least, she was a voice of Bo-Katan. So
there you go.
I mean, the coolest. I think one of the coolest things about this is finding out is this. There's this whole new shoe that hasn't dropped yet that we find out, and that's that essentially, especially. So this is one of those episodes you need to read articles on afterwards, because if you don't know anything about Rebels, or even if you've just casually watched it, we've essentially found out that Din Djarin, Mando, is from a terrorist cell. Essentially, he's from the Death Watch. I mean, the first thing we see is Bo-Katan and her folks with her take off their helmets, and he's you're not Mandalorian.
Yeah, he's
Freaks
stunned by
out.
that. He's totally stunned by the fact that they just took off their helmets.
Yeah, and Katie Sackhoff's character Bo-Katan says, "Oh, he's a child of the Watch," and we've seen the scene where he's saved by the Mandalorians before, and they seem very heroic. We'll come to find out, and I didn't even catch this first time around. Children of the Watch, he's part of Death Watch. Children of Death Watch is that's who that is. So, he's been part of this extremist sect of Mandalore, and he hasn't even allowed that to sink in yet. Obviously, he's had his eyes open to other Mandalorians and other clans, but that's something that's still down the road. That's one of the reveals we got. We got the obvious name drop at the end, because the whole season's been about him trying to find people like him, just so
And
he
I'm gonna
can.
say right now, just because they dropped her name at the end of this episode,
It's
I
not going to
don't
be the
think
next one.
nope.
Okay.
Nope. He'll get sidetracked. He'll get
Yeah.
sidetracked. We're not going to get her next episode, and everybody's going to be really mad and upset when they don't get her next
Well,
episode.
there was one thing that pissed me off as a way too nerdy Star Wars fan, and this is the reason that Travis is absolutely right. When he leaves, I forget the name of the planet they're on, Trask or whatever. When he leaves there, the Razor Crest, his ship is just in tatters. It's
Yeah,
flying, but it's
that's
not
right.
flying well. The Mon Calamari in the Star Wars lore are known to be the best shipbuilders in the universe. They build the best ships, and they didn't hook my man up at all.
Okay, yeah, but to be fair, he didn't exactly look very hard. and he just found the he just
He asked a
tossed
fisherman to fix his
he
ship.
tossed
Yeah.
some coin at the first guy he saw standing on the dock.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Which.
it's pretty much his fault.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
also in case he's also been tossing around a lot of coin lately too, which
Yeah.
makes me think that he's going to need to stop and take a job,
I. I.
which
Yeah.
I'm going to guess is going to be the next episode where he's going to have to take a job in order to pay for actual repairs on that thing, or just to take care of the child. Which, by the way, how are you feeling when he got double crossed on the ship and the child got knocked into the water right into the
Oh. I mean, I knew. I knew.
how are
Right
you
then.
feel? How far did your stomach drop when that
It
joint happened?
all the way down. All the way down. I was like, ah. You usually don't catch me off guard like that, but the worst part is it didn't even occur to me, and this was the amazing part. These are some of these fist pumping scenes we're talking about. It didn't even occur to me that Bo-Katan and the rest of her Mandalorians were going to show up. So they get the child gets kicked into this, you know, deathly eel pit, and Mando jumps in after him. They lock him in, and you're like, well, it's done. And then you see the jetpacks. By the way, coolest things ever invented. We should all have jetpacks. And then the Mandalorians come down on their jetpacks, and then they do it again 2 scenes later. Just amazing. Mandalorians are the coolest things on the universe.
They are. They really are.
Yeah.
This was just an amazing episode. Bryce Dallas Howard directed this one. She directed, I think, one of my least favorite episodes of last season. It wasn't necessarily bad. Like I didn't think there were any bad episodes last season. It was just my least favorite of the bunch.
Which
She's head and shoulders better in this one. I think she handles the action extremely well. Just great moments in this. I just loved everything about this episode. Loved it.
how funny is it that we go from talking about how boring Ron Howard is in Hillbilly Elegy, talking about how
Honestly,
awesome Bryce
Bryce
Dallas
Dallas
Howard.
Howard is doing better stuff in Star Wars than he did. So.
Oh yeah, that's. Also, I just want to put this out there. I fucking hate you for being right all the time. Chapter 12: The Mandalorian rejoins old allies for a new mission. They better not hold it to the. It better not be the. He knows where to go now. It better not be the finale. I will be pissed.
Wait to save that shit.
I
You'll save
just
it for like a special episode, like at the end of the season. It's gonna be like a like a bonus episode.
I'm just kind of humiliated that I stupidly was just like, oh yeah, she'll be there next year, and then as soon as you said it, I was like, oh.
Yeah, no, nothing comes that easily.
Yeah, unfortunate. So.
Oh man.
Um,
We're running out of time here, so let's talk about what
Yeah,
else.
we got a lot of other stuff to talk about. We got about 6 minutes left. I think some of the coolest news I saw, we all knew that it was going to be as Guardians of the Galaxy at some point, but we just found out that Chris Pratt will be in Thor: Love and Thunder. So there's that.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
I mean,
It makes sense.
I think it's cooler knowing that than to think that Thor would be taking over a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I think it fits better that way. Let's just get right into the one thing that you and I both wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
That Dwayne the Rock Johnson is talking about remaking the Scorpion King.
Yeah, they're gonna reboot that joint, man. And when I wrote the post about it, what blew my mind, because I kind of stopped paying attention to Scorpion King, because why would I keep paying attention to it?
It's not on anybody's alerts.
They're still making them. Like the last one was just in 2018.
Hasn't Scott Adkinson been like in all of them?
Isn't he like in all of these things?
Yeah, he's every direct-to-video man.
Isn't he in all of these things?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the last one was in 2018. Is on straight to DVD or straight to VOD, of course. But yeah, so Dwayne Johnson is talking about rebooting Scorpion King. Looks like that's going to happen because they hired Straight Outta Compton writer one of the co-writers of Straight Outta Compton to write it. So Scorpion King, and the thing I had tweeted about when it comes to Scorpion King is that it was his first major role. It was Dwayne Johnson's first major role.
Right.
That first appearance was in The Mummy Returns, and it was as a really awful looking CGI version.
Oh, that's right. That wasn't in the Scorpion King. That was in The Mummy.
Yeah, and then the Scorpion King movie came out a year later. But the first appearance in The Mummy Returns, which is an excellent film, by the way, and Mummy Returns is fucking amazing as an action adventure movie.
Oh yeah.
But that scene was shit, and I was like, as considering how bad that scene was and how awful it looked, CGI was still very experimental back then. It was not.
I
Well,
mean,
oh,
this was La Magra from
very
Blade bad.
he's very lucky that his career didn't end right there.
Yeah.
Like he's like super lucky that scene is like really bad. Like I don't say things are like super bad for no reason. It's a really bad scene. It was noticeably bad back then. It looks worse now. He's lucky his career didn't end right there because it
Yeah.
probably could have for somebody else.
Oh, 100%. If he wasn't the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, he
Yeah,
would it would have. And you know, I say that jokingly, but the truth is, the guy's got more charisma than anybody you'll find anywhere else. And if anybody, a lesser man of any sort, doesn't survive that. And I'm kind of padding here a little bit because I'm trying to load up. I gotta figure a easier way to do this. I'm gonna throw the image up right now above us, just to give you guys an idea of what we're talking about. I mean, this is, you know, Nintendo 64 level
yeah,
CGI,
it's not
and
good.
so yeah, you're. I mean, the fact that they, and I'm looking at the IMDb right now because I had no clue. You caught me by complete surprise when you said they were still making these. There have been 6 Scorpion King movies.
Hmm.
That's amazing to me. All right,
Yep.
so there it is. Let me make it a little bit smaller there. We'll put that right in the front. So you guys can see above. That is not a joke. That face above us is what the CGI looked like. And this is 9 years after Jurassic Park. This is something I still don't understand about CGI. I'm gonna go on tangent very quickly. Is even today you have DC, or I'm sorry, you have Marvel as photorealistic CGI that you can't tell the difference between what's fake and what's real, and then you have DC who has Play-Doh characters that still look like this. And I don't get it. This is 9 years after Jurassic Park gave us CG and it gave us very photorealistic, and you're still getting this crap. But
Well, to be fair to these guys,
mm,
um, they probably spent every dollar on the effects for the rest of the movie because The Mummy Returns is a really big action movie.
yeah,
And there's
well
a lot of stuff. The Mummy himself took a lot of money and a lot of time.
that's a good
Um,
point.
so they're probably scraping by the time they got to the Scorpion King. They probably should have left that scene out or just figured out something else to do. But
Turning him into an
that
actual scorpion, it could have been metaphorical. He didn't have to turn into an actual
right,
scorpion.
yeah, they should have figured something else out. But like I said, he's just lucky, man. If it
Yeah.
was another actor, that could have been kaput. It could have been it. But he's
Um,
talented, and he overcame that shit. And then he put out the Scorpion King a year later and starred in it, and that was a bad movie too. I mean,
that's the amazing part. Not
Scorpion King
just
is not a good movie either, but
no.
he showed enough charisma in it that he was able to catapult from that. You
Yeah.
know, so
Well, that's the thing is it's not even just amazing. Not only did he not lose his career after that role, but he still had a spin-off movie after that. I mean, it's just amazing. Speaking of things that might be amazing, I'm just Captain Segway today. Wonder Woman 1984 is one of the there's been like 6 major movies everybody's been talking about throughout the year that keep getting pushed back, and
well,
there's
they're
been
all
3.
gone now. So
Yeah, they're all gone now, but
the
there's
only
been,
one that's still there is Wonder Woman 1984. It's the only one that's still in 2020. Everything else is gone.
and now they're talking about moving it to HBO Max. What do you think the chances are of this happening? And is this a one-off thing, or does this have real implications
Well,
for the future of this stuff?
let's see if it happens first. But the story is that Warner Brothers or Warner Media is considering the idea of having it come out because it's still scheduled for Christmas Day.
Mm-hmm.
They're considering the idea of a day and date release, or oh wait, no, there's 2 different angles on the story. So there and 2 reports came out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
One says that Warner Brothers is considering releasing it in theaters on Christmas Day and then releasing it on HBO Max within like 2 weeks, which is for a shortened theatrical window. Okay. The
Yeah.
other version of it is that they're considering a day and date release. So it comes out simultaneously on Christmas Day in theaters and on HBO Max. If I think they're going to do anything, I think they will pull it completely within a week or so,
You think so?
and they will move it to 2021. That's my thinking. I don't think they're going to do this. One, Patty Jenkins really wants it to be in theaters, and she wants it to be in theaters for a long time. She has been saying that for a couple of years. Um, so of course it's not ultimately up to her, but I still think that they're going to try to grant her a wish as best they can. But two, they want this to be $1 billion film. The only way that can happen is in the theater. And
Yeah.
I think they will eventually. I think because look, we're in middle of November. They need to be promoting it now, right
Yeah.
now, and they're not. And they're not. They're really not. So I think probably within a week, if maybe within these next few days, we're going to see them pull it from the schedule and move it to 2021, maybe, and just not. They're not going to date it. They're just going to pull it, but they're not going to date it. They're going to say
Yeah.
sometime in 2021, but they're not going to give it a new date because giving dates to anything right now is just stupid. I wish they would stop. I wish all these other people would stop doing it.
I mean,
But
that's what we've been saying for months, right? I mean, it's like you keep pushing things back, you're making yourself look dumb.
but on the other hand, if they were to have it come out day and date on theaters in HBO Max, it would be a big boost to the subscriber base for HBO Max, which is
Mm.
the angle that I think could win out, um, especially nowadays. They could because who's not going to subscribe to HBO Max, even if it's just to get Wonder Woman 1984 for a while.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
honestly, if you're not already subscribing to it, it's kind of crazy because they have the only thing keeping HBO Max away, and I can't believe they haven't sorted this out. The only thing keeping them away from just cornering the market and getting right up there with Netflix and Disney Plus is the fact that they're not available on all platforms yet. You still can't get them on Roku, you can't get them on Fire TV. Um, so that's where you're losing out. You get HBO Go on those, and your HBO Max subscription works for HBO Go, but you're missing all the DC stuff. You're missing a lot. HBO Max's needs a boom because we're starting to see the chinks in the armor. There's certain things like obviously they launched with all the Harry Potter movies, which were gone a month later. The DC movies aren't all there like all the Marvel movies are on Disney Plus. They might be there for a few weeks and then disappear. So they obviously don't have their stuff locked down as well as everybody else. That being said, HBO has been putting out some seriously good TV, some serious poignant TV and topical TV as well. They could be there, but this would be a huge thing for them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly think they move it to 2021. But I think if they don't do that, then they're going to do a day and date. That's the way I look at it.
Does it cost?
I don't think they're going to do a shortened theatrical window. I don't see the point. But
Now, what's I don't know enough about finance, and I know we're kind of dragged. We're already past the hour, but I don't know the finances of the film industry enough to know. Does it cost a studio to put a film in theater? Not talking about marketing. I mean, like literally to allow it to have it be available at theaters. If they want to do a day to date, does it cost them more? A considerable amount to have it in theaters as well.
yes.
Because you're just emailing. So where's the cost coming from on that? Because you're just emailing the print, right? Or emailing the file.
Yeah, I'd be the wrong person to ask about the fine details of that, but I know it's not free. Just to
I'm just
put it
wondering
in the theater,
what would it hurt,
or
for
at
them
least
to
it
do
would
that?
be some sort of. I think maybe the fee comes into like cost breakdowns or revenue breakdowns. Maybe that's
Mm.
where cost comes in. But I really wouldn't be a good person to ask about that either. But I know it costs nothing to put that joint on digital. On digital.
That's true.
I know it doesn't cost them anything hardly.
That's very true.
Uh, so, or at least considerably less.
Yeah, and we had a note here to talk about Amber Heard. I don't really want to talk about her this week.
Yeah,
Stallone.
yeah, we've talked about enough.
Yeah.
We're past the hour. We hit all the main stuff we wanted to get to.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
it's been a good week. This is a fun
Yeah.
show as always.
What do we have next week? I got to start putting a next week thing list together before I
Yeah,
start the show.
I don't know what's next week.
We'll be here. That's all that matters.
I know Thanksgiving is coming up at some point, but I don't know when.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 2020. Who knows what's when and where. We'll switch over to our info board here now. Don't forget, guys, we are the Punch Drunk Critics. www.punchdrunkcritics.com. This is Cinema Royale. On Twitter, you can find us at PDC Movies is the site Twitter account. Travis is at Punchy Critic. My cobweb-laden Twitter account is at PunchDrunkJohn. On Twitch, if you have not already, make sure you subscribe to Travis's channel at cinematic
Yes,
underscore
I'll be
enforcer.
streaming again soon. I haven't streamed in a while because well, one, I've been a little under the weather, but two, I've been waiting to get my Xbox Series S. So,
Oh, have you ordered one? You got it coming?
It'll be here tomorrow. So,
Oh, you suck.
yeah, I didn't get the X though. I got the S, and no, it's not great because I drove around all morning on last Tuesday trying to find a store that had any.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody had it.
Nobody.
No,
Well,
it was
I will
embarrassing.
definitely be tuning in then, and I am already subscribed, but I'll definitely be watching because I need to see more about the Xbox. I'm probably gonna end up with the X, but I don't see anything that it has that the S doesn't really, other than the disk drive and
A little bit more
some other stuff.
powerful.
Yeah, a
But
little bit more
okay.
powerful, but nothing that I'm gonna notice. I mean, to be
Yeah.
honest. If you guys have any tips, questions, if you want to try your hand at writing, we're always looking for talented writers. If you know something about a movie coming up, or just want to tell us how awesome we are, info@punchdrunkcritics.com is the address. It goes right to both of us, so we'll be able to answer you back.
I get plenty of messages telling me how awesome I am. You don't get any? You don't get those?
Mine are usually going the other route, telling me how
Oh,
much I suck. But it is what it is.
I only sent you that email once.
You send a scheduled email. It comes out once a month. Until next week, guys, we are the Punch Drunk Critics. This has been Cinema Royale, and we are out of here.
Beta.